wanted to just start off today with a little bit of housekeeping. So I know I sent an email out to everybody to please print off. So who are the people who did it? There you go. Anybody else? Down there, yeah. Alright, so we will be referring everyone got to these today. And always good to have a copy of them printed up at home. If you can, I would suggest printing them in colour if they're in the nice bright green, orange and red, and then sticking them up on your fridge, and then they're like a quick reference to when you're going to have a meal or whatever it might be. The next thing is what's up behind me, and this is the forum, so Easy Low Carb Living Forum. So this, if you haven't yet gone onto that and sent a request to join, so it was also in that email, you need to just click that link and that will take you to this page and it will ask and will request that you join. So it's a closed group. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Facebook, it basically means that nobody outside of this group can see the posts. So all your friends won't see what you're posting in this group. It's completely private. Only the people in the group can see the posts. Now the reason why I'd like everybody to do this is because times before when I haven't done this, there's going to be heaps of questions. You're all going to have a million questions, and 90% of them will be the same questions coming from all of you. And so this way, when one person asks it, it is there for everybody to see the answer. The good thing about this forum too is that it's been running for various other challenges, and a lot of my private patients have been on it as well. And so there is a heap of content on here already. There's probably all your questions already answered on here. So if you go, can we see up next to where it says, just below that, all the pictures, under notifications, it says search this group. If you want to search a topic, that's where you go, and then see if I've answered your question first. And if I haven't answered your question, by all means, post a new question up there for me to answer. So, like I was just doing a search earlier for psyllium husk, and there's like 10 posts about psyllium husk, or recipes for frittatas, do that, and recipes for there's millions of recipes in there that people have shared. So there's all sorts of information on there. So if you haven't requested, please do that. Don't be offended when I don't reply to your email question, because I won't. Put it up here, all right? And the last bit of housekeeping is that after today, I will send you out quite a few large documents, and these are them, which I'll actually go over a bit later. I won't show you them right now. There's a meal plan and recipes associated with that for week 1. Should you wish to follow that to a T, you can. Then there's other recipes that you can supplement in there as well. There's all with, in that, there's all little keys. So if the whole recipe is a green list recipe, which you'll understand by the end of today, then it'll have a little green icon next to it. So this is an all go for your life sort of recipe. Or there might be a little blue icon next to it, and the blue icon means that there's adequate protein in this recipe. Or there might be a little diamond, purple diamond, and that this means beware, this is a treat recipe. So this is not something you should be having every day. So there's all of that sort of stuff. There's lots of documents that are going to come out to you. They're big documents, so I'm not going to email them. I'm going to send you a link to open them via Dropbox. Oh my God, what's that? Some of you are saying, I can't do that. Well, get your children to do it for you. Seriously. It's very straightforward. You just click on it and it will prompt you to create a Dropbox folder, and then you'll be able to either just keep those files in Dropbox and view them there, or you can download them onto your computer. Okay, if you get stuck, then then you shouldn't. It's pretty straightforward, hopefully. So that's what those I guess are all the resources that we'll have at the end of today. So there's lots of stuff to take home with you. So getting into the nuts and bolts of everything today, can I have a show of hands who is currently or has in the past followed a low carb way of eating? Okay, so put your hand up really high if you haven't. Okay. Who in that first group have followed low carb but would say they haven't really been doing it all that well lately? Great, most of you. All right, well that's why we're here. But it's important to know that because people who have done it before, their expectations might be quite different. Also, people who have been doing it really well are not going to feel the same way as people who haven't been doing it, and you're going to jump in this week and you're going to feel a particular way, and I want to set those expectations for you. But I want to just say that no matter where you are, let's take today as a real start point for everyone. Today is a great day to move forward with a clean slate. So even if you've been doing this before, we all have our ups and downs with our diet. Things go well, then we fall off the bandwagon a little bit. So today we've got this clean slate. We're all starting together. Some of the information will be old news for you if you've done it before, but take it with a breath of fresh air, and hopefully the recipes will be inspiring to create different things to what you've been doing before. But our real focus from today is getting our carbs pretty low. So if you've watched all the videos, and hopefully you have, you will know that some of you are more insulin resistant and some of you are more insulin sensitive. But regardless of where you sit on that spectrum, in the first few weeks, we all need to be pretty low with our carbohydrate intake in order to get us adapted to fat burning. So it doesn't matter where you sit on that spectrum right now, everybody's carbs are going to be below around about 50 grams a day, and at the end of today you'll understand what that looks like. So everyone's carbs are going to be below 50 grams because what that is going to allow you to do is force you to use fat as a fuel. Because if you don't go low enough, you'll just keep on pulling on your carbs to burn, to give you energy to do the stuff that you need to do. So we want to force you to find, your body needs to be forced to find this new fuel, fat. Okay. But on top of that, together with the low carb, we need to give ourselves enough fat to help that process along. So one of the biggest mistakes that I'll see is people will lower their carbs and they will not eat enough fat, because over the years we've been bombarded with messages that fat is going to make us fat and fat is going to clog our arteries and fat is bad. If you do not eat enough fat, you will, I don't like this word, but you will fail low carb school. At the end of this 6 weeks, it will all be too hard for you. You will be hungry, you will be angry, and you will want to go back to eating the way that you did previously. If you eat enough fat, you will feel satisfied, you won't feel hungry, you'll feel energized. So you need to make sure that you up your fats. Of course, we need to make sure that those are good fats, and so that's why we've got green, orange, and red lists, and that's what I'm going to go over with you in a minute. Okay, so the 2 keys here: low carb, high fat. So this is all setting the picture for today, but this is really all about you. Every single one of you are here for probably a slightly different reason. We all have our own goals, we all want to be in a different place in 6 weeks' time, and I want you to think about what that is for you. Why are you here today? Why did you turn up? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to get out of this 6 weeks? And then what do you want to get beyond those 6 weeks? And more importantly, why? You know, why do you want to do that? Why is it that you want to lose that weight? Why is it that you want more energy? What is that going to enable you to do in your life? So, you've got these little cards that you would have found on your seat, and we've got plenty of them, so if you need extras of these, then let us know. This says my 90-day action plan, because usually when we do these with people, we do 90 days. But for you, I want you to cross the 90-day out and say, my 6-week action plan. Okay. And this is it. It's an action plan, because actions are very different to goals. If we just put down the goal, you know, we don't really know what we're going to do with that. For example, my goal is to lose 4 kilograms, let's say, in these 6 weeks. Well, yeah, that's the goal, but what's the action that you're going to take to achieve that goal? And so I want to know what your actions are going to be associated with your goals. It's the action plan that is more important than the goal. So maybe an action plan for I'm going to lose the 4 kilos is every Sunday night I'm going to dedicate 2 hours to prepping food for the week ahead. You know, something like that. Or I'm going to go to the market to shop for all of my fresh stuff for the next few weeks. Excuse me. Or whatever it might be. It has to be action plan. Now, we've only got a short amount of time today, just an hour, and so I'm just giving you the next 2 or 3 minutes to think for yourself what these might be for you, what your goals are, why you're here, and just jot down a few points. You can make this, you know, more specific, and you can take a little bit more time to thinking about it when you get home this evening. I do have pens, if anybody doesn't have pens over here. Eyes forward, you can grab your little booklet and turn to the second page, which is your green list. Okay. So you could, at the end of today, take the meal plan that is going to be sent to you, and you could just do that. For the next week, you could just have that meal plan as it is, and you know, your first week would get the big tick. But what I want to make sure that you get out of all of this is not just a week's worth of being able to get a big tick, but a lifetime worth of giving yourself a big tick. Because that's what's more important. So that's where these lists come into it. You know, meal plans, I want you to be able to take these and really make your own meal plans with all the recipes and the things that your families like to do. So this is where these lists come into it. So if you just ate from the green list, if all you did was only eat food that sits on the green list, it would be very, very difficult to eat more than about 30 grams of carbohydrate a day. So if you have 3 really big meals and you filled your plate with as much as you could possibly fit on it, but only stuff from the green list, you would probably end up having roughly 30 odd grams of carbohydrate a day. So remembering what I said is that our aim here initially is to be below 50 grams of carbs. So the green list is your go-to list. This is the list that should make up the majority of what you eat. Whenever you're preparing a meal, the base of that meal, the bulk of that meal should come from things on the green list. All right. So what have we got on the green list? We've got all of our vegetables that grow above ground, meaning that they are lower in their carbohydrate content. Okay? They're also giving us plenty of other nutrients that are really important in our lives. We've also got on this list protein, so good sources of protein, and I'm talking about quality, complete proteins, so animal proteins, eggs, meat, chicken, fish, all of that sort of stuff fits here. Also on the green list are our fats, our pure fats. We'll go through those in a second. And then you've got your really high-fat dairy products. Now, there's a small percentage of you that cannot tolerate dairy. Depending on where you originated from, if you have a background in South America or Asia, you are more likely to be intolerant of dairy. If you come from European background, you are less likely to not tolerate. So you can more likely to be able to tolerate dairy. So, and you might know when you eat dairy, you don't feel so great, or maybe you don't really know, and this is something that you'll discover over the next little while. But dairy is one of those things that we need to tread cautiously if you're not sure with. So it's on the green list because for people who can tolerate it, it's a great addition to this lifestyle. It makes things really easy to stick to long term. It makes your foods a lot more exciting and enjoyable to eat. Okay, so that's what's here on the green list. So you can see next to each of the items, there is a little number, like next to asparagus, it says 1.4 grams. What does that mean? Well, that's the amount of carbohydrates per 100 grams. Now, that doesn't mean you eat 100 grams of asparagus. It's just giving you an idea of what the carbohydrate content is. And basically, if you did a quick look through all of that, you can see that all of these items are really, really low. So that's why you can pile your plate up pretty high with all of these things, and you are not going to go above your quota of 50 grams. Okay? Then we get to the protein component. And we are going to go into a lot more detail about protein next week. Exactly the amounts that you should have. If you watch the video, you know that we want to aim for a minimum of 30 grams. But I want to just point out those first 2 points that I mentioned. What's the objective in this first week? The objective in the first week is to get your carbohydrates low and your fat high, so that we shift you from being a carbohydrate burner to a fat burner. Protein is it's important, but not really so much this week. Yes, you should have 30 grams and it's going to help you long term, but if you don't get there this week because you're focusing so much on low carb and high fat, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because this week is just 1 week in your life, and all we're trying to do this week is get you to fat burn. Next week we're going to speak a lot more about protein. We're going to throw a lot more protein in, which is going to help you find your macronutrient balance. This week we're not worried about macronutrient balance, we're worried about getting you fat burning. And so I'm just going to say include protein, and when you include the protein that's on this list. Ideally, we want really good sources of protein. So when you go down to your local butcher or you go to the market, you should be able to ask your butcher, or you should be able to ask the guy at the market, where do you source your meat? Does it come from a farm where the animals are free range? What are they being fed? If they can't answer you, then I'd go to another butcher, because they need to know where their stuff comes from. So we go every week to Pran Market, and we shop at Gary's Butcher, because you can ask any of those guys there any question about their meat and they will answer it in detail. They know which farm it came from, how the animal was killed, what they ate before, because you are what you eat eats. You are what you eat eats. So if your piece of meat that's sitting on your plate was fed a whole lot of grains and corn and crap, well, that's what you are now eating. But if that animal was fed what they should have been fed, grass, and they were free range and fresh air, and because of that they didn't get sick, so they didn't have antibiotics and all sorts of other, then that piece of meat is very different to another piece of meat. This is particularly so for pork. So if you like bacon or pork belly or any of those sorts of things, you need to be extra cautious with pork, because pigs accumulate things in their system and they hold on to everything that they eat. Whereas other animals like cows and sheep and lamb, they have sort of a way of getting rid of certain things through their digestive systems. So it's not as bad. So if you're going to a place and you know, you're not sure what to choose, you choose the lamb or the beef over the pork. If you're going to a butcher and you can ask all the questions and you're going, is it free range? Tick. Is it grass fed? Tick. Happy with this product? Yes. Then you can have anything you like. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? It's the same with fat. If you look at the next column, I've got lots of animal fats listed there. Now, if you eat fat that comes from a good source, then that is going to be really healthy for you. But if you eat fats that's coming from not a really good source, well then that's not doing you all that good. Okay? So just to give you a bit of an example, if you're looking at omega-3s, have we all heard of omega-3s? You know, the good omega-3 fish oils, these do all sorts of good things for us, yes. We see increased levels of omega-3s in grass-fed animals. So there's this whole big push, you know, we need to eat more fish, we need to eat more fish. Well, yeah, we do need to eat more fish, but if we ate meat the way that it should be, our omega-3 levels would be higher anyway. All right, so that's the same for fat. But if we look at that fat list, there's some other things in there too. Olive oil, avocado oil, macadamia oil, coconut oil. These are all fats that are really great for you to be including. When we put fats together with our vegetables, we absorb a whole lot more nutrients. Because many of the nutrients in veggies are fat soluble. And so we need fat present in order to be able to absorb them. And so adding you know, a little bit of extra butter or some coconut oil to your veggies, you know, stir fry them, not dry fry them, put a little bit of butter or put a little bit of coconut oil with it to give it a bit of shine. Your veggies should always be shiny. Yeah? Okay. And then you've got the dairy down the bottom. So if you're making a salad, it's boring if it's just a tuna salad with some greens. If you throw a bit of feta cheese in and a nice drizzle of olive oil, suddenly it's a whole lot different. Right, so use dairy to help make your food really tasty. You might have a coffee in the morning and instead of putting a little splash of milk into it, you put a little splash of cream into it. And suddenly you don't need your sugar anymore because your coffee tastes a whole lot better and a whole lot nicer with the cream in it. So everything on this list is your go-to list. Okay, are we happy with this list? Any questions around this list? No? All right. Yes?
Something say like the chicken fat, is it okay to just have chicken skin and
yeah,
on and
yeah, so it is.
stop myself from eating
Yes.
all the chicken skin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if it's a good sauce, then
Yeah.
then go for it and eat it as it is. Yeah. Don't be removing things off of it.
Yes, you don't need to add much more fat. You
That's
just
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that next week about, you know, when to take the skin off the chicken and when to keep it on, and, you know, all of those little bits. But for right now, increase your fat, you're leaving it on. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now if we all ate from the green list all the time, well, we might get a little bit bored. Yes? Okay, so yes, it's you know, idealistic to think that we can all eat from that all the time, and that's why in comes orange list. So off you go to that next page, and this is the sort of stuff that is still listed. You know, this is quality food. This is food that is available to us in nature. But it is stuff that we need a little bit cautious with. So, you know, like if you think of if you were living a few million years ago, or whatever it was, and what was available to you, it would be what was seasonal. But everything's available to us all year round here. And so we've got to know what we should restrict when. And we don't really do that all that well. So things on this list were harder to come by. You know, nuts, we just buy a bag of almonds or macadamias, but if you had to get nuts from nature and you spent, you know, how long getting it out of the shell, you probably wouldn't eat as many as you do when you're just taking a handful by handful. So things on this list are things that we want to eat with a little bit of a thinking hat on. I've got all the carb quantities next to it as well, so you can straight away see that now the carb content is going up. You know, we've got quite a lot more, especially when you take an example of an average apple is around about 150, 200 grams, and bam, you've got 50% of your carbohydrate just in one apple. Okay? So you've really got to put this thinking cap on when we eat things from this list, because your carbohydrates can add up very quickly and easily. But if you scan through this list, you'll also find things that are still quite low. So if you look at your berries, raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, they are lower. And so if you're in the low carb circle, those are the fruits that people tend to go to. Your berries, because they are lower in carbs. If you look at nuts, look at the difference between, for example, cashews and macadamia nuts. So if you have 100 grams of cashews, you've got like 23 grams of carbohydrates. But if you have 100 grams of macadamia nuts, you've just got about 5 grams of carbohydrates. So you can start deciding which nuts might be better for you. But even these really low ones, they need to sit here on this orange list because of the way that we eat them. When we get a bag of nuts, it's really difficult to stop eating them. And so we've got to eat them with caution. So we've got to have some sort of strategy around eating them. We've got to either just take the amount out and put it in a container and that's then, or we use nuts and seeds as part of a meal. So we're adding it, to a salad or to stir fry or to some yogurt and berries and that sort of thing. So it's combined with something else, and then you don't tend to eat overly too much of it. So lots of caution around things on this list. There are some people who like to count and weigh and measure and get really pedantic, depends on your personality, like 50 grams, and so you'll weigh and measure everything out and make sure at the end of the day that you're at your 50 grams. And if you're that sort of person, that's great, go for it. But then there's other types of people who think that that is just the biggest pain in the ass, and they're just not going to do that. And so for those sorts of people, this is my tip to you. What you need to do is go, I'm going to have 3 fairly big meals a day, and I'm not going to worry about weighing and measuring and counting anything in those meals that comes off of the green list. I'm just going to estimate that the green list is giving me 30 grams of carbohydrate a day. Therefore, I'm trying to stay under 50 grams. I've got 20 grams up my sleeve that can come from the orange list. Okay, so it's taken a whole lot of weighing and measuring out of the equation, and now you've just got to account for that 20 grams. So whenever anything from the orange list appears on your plate, for now, and just for now, you need to weigh and measure it. At least once or twice to give yourself an idea of what 100 grams of blueberries looks like. What 100 grams of sweet potato looks like on your plate. I mean, how much is that? Is it half a potato? Is it the whole one? What is it? And you won't know until you put it on the scale, and these are all raw weights. Everything is always raw weights. So do that just once or twice, and then you know that that's the amount that you should have, and just count to 20 grams each day when you have things from the orange list. So if for breakfast you just had some eggs and bacon and a whole lot of veggies and a bit of fat, that's all green list. So you don't have to count anything. And then you get to lunch, you have a big salad, and you throw some cheese and olive oil and a protein sauce, and that's all green list. And now you get to dinner, you've got 20 grams up your sleeve for dinner. So you could put a bit of pumpkin, and you could put some berries afterwards, or you could throw some nuts and seeds into your stir fry, but measure those out so that you know what they are. Make sense? Questions?
I've noticed that almond milk isn't on here. Is that something that would be on the green or the orange list?
It would be on the orange list. So almond milk is something that is quite a difficult one because the only really good almond milk is the one you make yourself,
Yeah.
which is a bit of a pain in the bum.
Yeah.
But if you are going to do that, then go for it, and that's fine. And then when you strain it, you can use that meal to bake with as well, so you sort of get two products out of it. There are a few almond milks that you can now buy in the store, but they should have a use-by date within 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
If they have anything longer than that, then they are not a pure almond milk. Yeah.
Why does something like coconut water, which is 2.6 grams per 100, why is it on the orange list and not the green list?
Because you've got to still be cautious with how you drink it. So when you have something like coconut water, you would more than likely have more than 100 mils. So you would have like a thing of 250, and then very quickly it adds up. It's the same with nuts, you know. So anything that's on here, it's not necessary, it's the way that you then incorporate it into your day that would add up quickly. So you need to just put your thinking cap on when you have it. Yeah?
What about like condiments? Salt, soy sauce?
Yeah, so I've also got a shopping list. So all of those things are going to be fine, you know. You'll see that I recommend Himalayan salt over other salt because it's got better electrolyte levels, better magnesium levels. So that's with that recommendation, but we'll go through a shopping list in a second and start those sorts of additional things on there as well. Yeah. All right, you'll see on there's some red wine, there's dark chocolate too. You can include those things, be mindful.
So what is the dark chocolate?
Needs to be 85% or greater, so it varies. No, it's not no carb. I haven't put a number because it will vary brand to brand. And if you're having 85% or 90% or 100%, it's going to vary in its carb content. So read the back of the label and check how much you're having and what's the carb content of that. Okay. Now today, I'm not going to spend much time going over this list. Red list. All I'm going to say is that anything on this list, don't have it. If it's not on the green or the orange, it's most likely going to be found on the red, and therefore stay away. There are a whole lot of reasons why, and over next week and right at the end I'll go into more details as to why this is. For every item I have on this list, there is a real reason why you shouldn't have it. You know, whether it's going to cause your insulin to go through the roof, or your inflammatory markers to go through the roof, or whatever it might be. It is generally not what we as humans should be consuming. All right? No-go zone. Big line through for the moment. Week 1, you know, with a little bit of motivation and all of those things, we should all be able to get through this week without having to get to this list. Right? Okay. So before I go through a few things up here, stuff that you're going to be sent, I just wanted to go back to the first page, which are my rules. And I don't know if you like that word, rules, but we'll use it anyway. All right, skip all the way to the bottom, number 8. If in doubt, just eat real food. Just. So you go out to somebody's house, or you go to a restaurant, and you don't know what to order, or, you know, all this stuff. Your default. What's on the green and what's on the orange list? Real food. It's food that when you look at it, you can identify exactly what it is. When you look at a bowl of breakfast cereal, you say, what is that? What's in there? Where do you start? You've got no idea. You've got to go and look at the ingredient listing, and then you start reading through that, and you're like, I don't even know what half of that stuff is. No. You want to be able to, very confidently look at what is on your plate and go, I can identify all of those parts. I know exactly what that is on my plate. So if you go to a restaurant and you order like a risotto or a pasta, and it's got a sauce and it's got other stuff in it, and you look at the risotto or the pasta when it arrives in front of you, and can you identify all parts? No, you can't. You know what is in there. You know what oils they've used, what thickeners they've used, what else? I don't know. You can't. But if you just order a steak or a piece of fish and you ask them to please put the sauce on the side, or to not give you the sauce at all, and then some veggies or salad with the dressing or the sauce on the side, or can you rather just have some olive oil and balsamic with it? And it is possible at almost every restaurant in Melbourne to find a fairly good choice. Maybe it's not 100%, but it's going to, you've got your thinking cap on, it's going to be better than maybe what you would have ordered previously. There's always a better choice. Even at, like an Asian style restaurant where you've got Thai and, you think, what's on here? But there are always better choices. Go through the recipe, through the menu, and just ask lots of questions. Yes, everyone you're with will think you're a pain, and, but anyway, just ask lots of questions. This is your health, this is your life, this is your decision, so you choose, all right? So your default is just eat real food. So sometimes you're not going to be in control of the amount of carbohydrates or fat or whatever, then you're just going to go to that. So there's always a way with all of this. And we'll quickly run through from 1. Be patient, because each of you are going to react very differently to this. For those of you who have never experienced low carb before, some of you might feel pretty horrible this next week. So especially if you have been typically a fairly big carbohydrate consumer or a big sugar consumer, because now all of a sudden we're taking that fuel away from you. So for the first 24, 36 hours, what your body will do is it will go searching for all the carbohydrates that you have stored, and it will get those out, and it will use all of those up. And then after about 36 hours, there's nothing left. And now you're not feeding yourself enough either, or not enough carbs anyway. And your body goes, uh-oh, what now? And this manifests in everybody a little bit differently. So you might feel a little bit fatigued, or your energy levels might just drop off a little bit, or you might get a big fat whopper of a headache, or you might just be really angry and emotional. I've had one person told me that he didn't get out of bed for 2 days, but I think that's pretty extreme. So I don't reckon that's what's going to happen. But most people just feel this. It's actually got a name. It's called low carb flu, and it's like this mild. You don't feel great. You just don't have your usual, because you don't have a fuel source. Well, your body thinks you don't, because the carbs are gone, and you've got no idea how to tap into that fat just yet. But over the next few days, your insulin level will drop low enough so that your body will find your fat. And if you're feeding yourself lots of fat, that will help it along. And once you find the fat, then suddenly you start feeling better again. So it shouldn't take longer than about a week for this to happen. Some of you might arrive here next week and still not be feeling 100% yet, but I'd say most of you should. Couple of things to be aware of is that when you lower your carbs and your insulin level starts coming down, insulin influences everything in our body, all our systems. One of the systems that it influences is all the controls around our kidney function. And so we have lower insulin and your kidneys start getting rid of extra fluid. So we get lots of fluid dumping. So you need to go to the toilet pretty often during this first week, is what generally happens. So you're running off to the loo and then you're really thirsty, and so you're drinking lots and then it's going straight through you, but you're still thirsty. So that's pretty normal, it will settle down, but what can happen is that when you go to the toilet, you're losing fluid, but you're also losing electrolytes. When you drink, you're just replacing your fluid. So you want to make sure that you are adding back some electrolytes. The most important one is actually salt. And the best salt is your Himalayan salt, because it's going to give you reasonably good levels of sodium, but it's also going to give you a little bit of some other electrolytes, magnesium, that sort of thing too. Now, most people can just add salt back in and get pretty far, and that's fine, but other people might need to supplement magnesium. I'm not going to speak about that today because none of you will need to supplement magnesium this week. Some of you might need to supplement magnesium moving forward. But for this week, we don't need to worry about it. Just have plenty of salt. Plenty of salt. Yes, you heard me right. Plenty of salt added to your diet. Why? Because most of the salt that's in our current diet comes from processed food. So it's in breads, it's in cereals, it's in sauces. And when we take all those things, which are on the red list, and we throw them out, now all of a sudden, 99% of the salt in our diet has disappeared. And so we actually have to add it back in. When we have a typical Western diet, we have maybe 10 or 12 grams of salt a day. We should have maybe about 5-ish grams of salt a day. So hence the recommendation, reduce your salt, yes, because our diet gives us too much if we have a typical Western diet. When we have a low carb diet, when we eat green and orange list items only, we generally get maybe about 2 or 3 grams of salt a day. So we've got to push that. Some people even do things like a salt tablet or whatever, but we don't need to worry about that yet. Just throw extra salt into your food without feeling guilty about it. Okay. Lots of planning. I'll put that in there because, you know, if you don't plan, this is really hard. Someone rang me up a few days ago and said, oh, I really want to do this low carb thing, but do I need to dedicate lots of time to it, and is it going to, you know, require planning? And yes, 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 and yes again. Yes, you need to take time out to prepare meals, to shop for the right food, to have stuff available. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not easy because you can't just stop off at any cafe or milk bar and grab a snack when you're feeling hungry and you're on the road. You have to be organised. You have to be. You have to have the stuff available for you. So you need to have it at home, you need to have something in your car, you need to have something at work. The good thing, though, that you will find out, hopefully very quickly, is when you eat this way, it's going to change your hunger completely, and so your need to snack and that need to go and get something quickly because you're so hungry is going to diminish drastically. And so, you know, that's sort of the one thing controls the other thing, but we still have that need for planning and preparation and time around all of this. Okay. Don't get stuck eating the same thing for breakfast, lunch and dinner every day. Please don't do that. The recipes will hopefully give you lots of different ideas, but variety is important to get a good balance of nutrients as well. Fat is your friend. I've spoken about that already. And really listen to your hunger cues. I'll speak more about hunger next week, but if you're not hungry, don't eat. And if you are hungry, well then eat. You know, so if you wake up in the morning and you're not hungry, well, you don't have to have breakfast right then and there. Wait until you are hungry. And if that's only 10, 11, 12 o'clock, well, then that's when it is. Sometimes it's hard because you might be going to work and, you know, depending on the type of work you do, you can't eat food at particular times. But try as much as possible to go with your hunger and also with your thirst. So how much should you drink? Well, you should drink when you're thirsty and you should eat when you're hungry. Okay. All right. So I'm just conscious of time, so I want to show you a few little bits here. All right. So let's put this one up first. Sorry. All right, so you were asking about other bits that might come in. So this is one of the things that you will get. This is, oh, it's going by itself. I don't know how to stop that. Anyway, so this is your shopping list.
Push the play button and make it pause.
Oh,
And then use the arrow.
okay.
Use the arrow.
What arrow? Oh, there. Okay. No, it's not working.
No, the arrows on the keyboard.
I did. Didn't work. Oh, there. Alright, so it starts off with, you know, all your pantry items. These are sort of some extra things that you might have been thinking about, condiments, you know, vinegars and mustards and blah, 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 blah. So you can have a look through all of that stuff. And then, no, it's not going. Oh, there. Dry goods, all your herbs and spices that you might have some other lists, other ones that you use regularly that you want to add, but those are pretty much the ones in my recipes. Be careful when you buy some of your herbs and spices because surprisingly so, you might find some ingredients in there that you wouldn't expect, oils and other funny things. Fresh produce, dairy, we've gone that way, and then generally your veggies that you'll need. So that's the first list, that's the first resource that you're going to get sent to you. Let's go. So this is the main sort of, yeah, I won't go through this whole thing, but this is your getting started meal plan. So that's, you know, 7 days worth of what you might have. Stop it there. So those are the little guides that you're going to look for next to each of your recipes. So if it's a green next to it, you know, everything on there is on the green list. So it's a go for your life sort of recipe. If it's got an orange, then you need to stop and think there might be some items in there that you need to modify for yourself. So maybe there's a sweet potato in the recipe and you don't have any orange items left. Your 20 grams is gone for the day. Then you want to supplement, you know, substitute that for something else. If it's got a little blue triangle, that means that recipe per serve will give you a minimum of 30 grams of protein. And if it's got that little diamond next to it, then that's more like a treat style food. All right. So that then just goes through. So any of the recipes that were on the meal plan, is that going to go now? Yeah. Are then on there. So there's a heap of them on this one, and then out of that, you've got real food recipe variations. So a lot of people, you know, like certain things to be present in their diet, like bread and crackers. Maybe you're a cheese and crackers sort of person, or you're just looking for things. So this list will just give you alternatives, you know. You like to have a curry, but you like rice underneath it to soak up the gravy. Well, there's things, you know, like cauliflower rice, or you love having bolognese, you can have the sauce, but, you know, what are you going to have with it? So there's ideas, you know, low carb, real food, alternatives. So that's what this list is all about. And then one more. one more here is that one, which is just a whole lot of ideas around making veggies and salads more interesting and more tasty. So there's a bit of a blurb, but then it goes through all these different things. So if you just want to keep your meals pretty simple and you want to get a piece of meat and then you want to put some of these things with it. So, you know, there's dressing ideas that you can build on for yourself in there as well. And that's it. So those will all come in one big document to you so that you can open that up and reference it. So, you know, if you like to have hard copies, then print it out. But that's it from me today.